Let's bring in our next guest analyst, who's going to be waiting with everybody else to see what this number is in about an hour and 15 minutes. So between now and then, we'll just talk about, are the Cubs opening up at home? I think the Sox are at home, aren't they?
Yeah, I think maybe they both are, Scott. I know that I've been getting emails from the Cubs about going to opening day, but then, obviously with this report today, that's not an option for Ted. But yeah, either way, I feel like this is the second Thursday in a row where we've had major sporting events really kind of getting in the way of our markets and our volume and volatility. But yeah,
we had season tickets for 40 years, from like 1970, maybe even longer than that. And I would always
being a bleacher bum, Scott. That would be.
We had, we had about 4 season tickets, and I tell you what, I would only go to opening day at Wrigley, and hardly ever went in the rest of the year. And I can't tell you how many times it snowed. I mean, it was brutal. So
I've been to a few of those too.
I was a passive fan, showing up at the 3rd inning and leaving in the 6th, but I could say I was there. And I think
the comfort of the Wrigleyville bars. Yeah, I hear you.
It was cold. All right, well, like I said, I got an hour and 10, hour and 12 minutes, and things are going to move. And like I said to you when we were off air, it's a binary event. And I think that's what people don't like about it. It is hard to hedge, I must admit. I mean, if you're just a straight producer, it's a difficult one. But, I mean, there are ways, and you've managed to explain a few of those. But what are you talking to your guys about, and how have you set yourself up for this?
Yeah, like you said, I mean, I think you have to have some short positions, whether it's, cash sales or short futures or long puts, whatever. But there's weekly call options that you can own in order to sort of hedge the hedge. And, I think a lot of that's been getting done before this report because, like you said, it's very binary. It's impossible to know for sure what's going to happen here. Not just on quarterly grain stocks, or not just on acreage, but also quarterly grain stocks, which a lot of times is the dark horse here. But I got to say, I look at a corn chart and I feel like something bullish has to come from this report. Otherwise, you have a chart that looks like it wants to roll over and head back down to those lows. Soybeans in the last 2 days have started to act the same way. So you hope that there's some bullish spark, something to get our attention from this report. Otherwise, you look at planting, you don't have a reason to rally into planting to try to gain more acres anywhere. You don't really have a threatening weather forecast, at least at this point. So again, something interesting is going to have to come out of this report. And if it doesn't, then I don't like what we're seeing on those charts. The other thing I'll say is that I think the trade's too low on the corn acres. I mean, just last minute here, trade I think is too low on corn acres, maybe just slightly too high on bean acres. So I don't know if we're going to see that bullish spark out of this report.
I get a feeling if the corn acres come in line, I think the market will look at that as a negative. It feels like it feels heavy, and I think that if you look at the carryout and you get an as expected number with decent weather, it doesn't look it's not fantastic. All right, stay there. We're going to go away. We're going to pay some bills. We're going to come back and talk more livestock. Let's bring in our guest analyst who's been so patiently waiting in the wings. Just another example of sometimes export sales don't really help your market, does it?
Yeah. I mean, look, in the livestock complex, that's not one of the things that we focus on all that much. I mean, it's something to talk about, but I don't know if it really is generally a market mover.
I would say, I mean, jump in. I would say this, having dealt for commercials my entire life, they know what these numbers are a week ahead of time. I mean, they're the ones that are giving the information out. So I would say, like, if corn is in a bullish mode and you get a great export sales number, it could add on to the rally. But if it's a really bad export sales number, it's not going to stop the rally. You know what I mean? That's what I look at export sales at. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think you got to look at them from a broader picture. Yeah. Like, how are we doing compared to the overall target?
Absolutely.
It gives you an idea of like where we should be going over time. But is it something that we have big reactions to on a daily basis? Not usually.
No.
Every once in a while, we get a big surprise in there, and it usually comes in the form of a cancellation, which cancellations, yes, there is one commercial that would know about that, but they don't like to talk about that amongst themselves. The purchases they do, right? So yeah, I don't know. Either way, cattle complex, hogs even, maybe just kind of waiting to see what this report has to say as well.
Right.
You've got live cattle and feeder cattle just both consolidating above the 200-day moving average after the recent break, after the recent correction that you and I have been talking about for a couple weeks now. And then hogs, unfortunately, I think are maybe carving out a bit of a topping formation. But I do think they could maybe regain some steam and go higher yet if there's a reason to do so. It's nice to see that hogs have bounced off the lows here today. So that's at least something to take home right now.
Buckle up and make sure that that trip down to Florida is a good one. All right. So we'll see what we get here in about an hour. Be careful. Thanks for all your content, Ted Seifried, Zaner Ag Hedge. We'll bring it back here to Nashville.